Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends and alumni. I'm Diane Abrams. I'm the Director of the School of Tourism and Hospitality at the University of Johannesburg, and it's great to have you all here this morning. Today is the first of many STH conversations we hope to host. This one is a special one, as it forms part of the celebrations this year as we mark 50 years of excellence in tourism and hospitality education. And what could be more appropriate than to have you as alumni, academics, industry partners, disruptors, and community activists to discuss contemporary issues confronting our sector. And this we will do through conversation as we start making sense of about the fourth industrial revolution. Today will be live streamed on the UJ YouTube channel, and the marketing people have asked me not to forget to give you the hashtags. It's hashtag STH50, hashtag STH Legacy. Please follow us on @STH@UJ. So there, Kagiso, I've done my plug-in. So we are very proud as UJ. We are very proud that UJ is leading in terms of the discussions on 4IR with our Vice Chancellor, very passionate Prof about the fourth industrial revolution. If you haven't been in a conversation with him, you haven't been informed. But he also serves as the Deputy Chairperson on the Presidential Commission of 4IR. Those of us that are here, we know that the fourth industrial revolution is a new economic paradigm involving disruptive technologies that change the way we work and live. It also relates and influences the manner in which we design, market, and deliver on our products. So what does this mean for a people-centric sector like tourism and hospitality? Clearly, it is an economic paradigm that we can't ignore as Africans. However, for me, in the quest for all things 4IR, we need to ensure that there is inclusive development, which is particularly relevant in the Pan-African context, where we have a highly unequal society, especially in South Africa. You know the numbers. The issue of sustainability as well cannot be ignored. I think those are crucial issues, and we take our cue from the Sustainable Development Goals. For those of us in higher education, the issue is around skills development, and how best we equipping graduates and the youth with skills that ensures their agility, adaptability, and resilience to deal with the issues of sustainability, inclusive development, and of course, the fourth industrial revolution. So these are some of my thoughts that I leave you with, but our esteemed panelists and our highly knowledgeable moderator will shed some more light on some of these issues, and we hope we'll have an interactive morning of engagement. So let me introduce you to our moderator. There's been a change in moderator, so this morning we have Ms. Gillian Saunders, who also has a long history with the School of Tourism and Hospitality. She was the chairperson of our board for many years, until 2018. She is now, what you called this morning, she's retired.
Semi-retired.
Semi-retired. She's an independent tourism and hospitality advisor. From 2018 to May 2019, Gillian was the special advisor to the then Minister of Tourism, Minister Derek Hanekom. Prior to that, until mid-2018, she was the Deputy CEO of Audit and Tax Advisory firm Grant Thornton in Johannesburg. Gillian holds a BSc Hotel, Catering and Tourism Administration from Surrey University and an MBA from Wits Cum Laude. Gillian has authored a number of articles and is a regular commentator in the media on many issues related to tourism and hospitality. Gillian, with that, I call on you to start the proceedings. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks very much, Diane. It's always horrible when those things are read out. So I'm going to now get my four panelists up and read the same horrible stuff out about them. But it's really wonderful to be here at this very venerable 50-year-old institution. It's been in my heart for many years because I have been on the board for quite a long time before I was chair of the board as well. And I think everybody related to Diane, to Daneel, to the university, to the board of the school is passionate about our youth, passionate about creating the future fit leaders, which is our slogan or our theme for this school. And so it's wonderful that although we're 50 years old and we're ancient and all that stuff, today we're going to talk about the future. We're going to talk about what makes our students or what will make us in the economic spheres of this country future fit. What is the fourth industrial revolution and what is it to hospitality and tourism? So I'm going to ask my panelists to join me on the stage, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of background about each of them as I introduce them to give their own sort of 3 to 5 minutes, no longer guys, of background on their thoughts about the fourth industrial revolution and its impact on hospitality. And our first session today is about impact on the hospitality and tourism industries, travel industries, and I think we're thinking globally as well. And then our second panel, which we'll talk about a bit later, is to bring that down to Africa. How do we innovate in Africa? How do we make sure that this industry is fit for the future in Africa, in every which way that the future is coming at us? Sometimes like a freight train, so fast we can't keep up. So if I can ask my panelists to come on the stage, I'm going to be really staid and boring and non-disruptive, and in the order there on the programme. So it's Daneel van Lill, Prof. Daneel van Lill. Now I've got to actually look. Mr. Arthur Gillis. It's Velma Corcoran. And I definitely have to read this one, because I always call it Mvuzi, but Dr. Nomvuselelo Songelwa.
Thank you very much.
So I never usually have to say that full name. So Prof. van Lill, as I said, I'm going to be boring and going program order. Executive Dean of the College of Business and Economics at UJ. 30,000 students in your faculty, or your college, so I should call it a college now. You know, if I had a bone to pick with you, your CV says nothing about the fact that you were the director of the School of Tourism and Hospitality. That's a big omission, eh? That's a big omission, real bone to pick. But Daneel was at the School of Tourism and Hospitality. Before that, he was at Bloemfontein Technikon, also with a hospitality course there, or degree course there. He, I think, is passionate about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, passionate about research, what can I say? He's got 12 professional awards, and we're going to read them all out for various different aspects of research. He's well published, he's done numerous book chapters. So, Prof, where you are at the School of Business and Economics, but knowing that you come from our sector, the School of Tourism and Hospitality, what are your thoughts on the Fourth Industrial Revolution?
Hi, Gillian. Thank you very much. It's great to be here today, and especially to all our alumni who are here, and Arthur, it's great to see you again and all the others. And it's really good to be at home. And given my current responsibilities, I was here, as Judy said, until the end of 2010. And then I moved to the deanery, and now my official job is to do plumbing, to keep things flowing, to herd cats.
That's the old take, come on.
Yes, and that's the whole story. So I'd like to reflect on what I've learned from many other industries as well, because I don't think that tourism and hospitality is a totally isolated industry. In fact, I think it's one of the most exposed industries that you could possibly think of. And just to think tourism and hospitality would for me be a bit narrow. So our argument is basically stated on three things. What are these technologies? There's about a list of 10 of them, but we found within the College of Business and Economics, which covers a wide range of disciplines, there are about 5 of them that are really, really having huge impact on the way that we think about our industries, about the way education forward. And then I'd like to just briefly explore a few impacts of these. And then finally, I'd like to go back to a basic question, and this is what on earth is a great graduate? Because our perceptions about that has also changed dramatically. So first of all, let's have a look at the disruptive forces. The first one that I obviously think of is the mobile internet, because everybody is connected. And we've only started to talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution the last 2 years. Fact of the matter is that you got a mobile or a cell phone, you got connected to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Then there's the Internet of Things, that everything is connected. Currently, worldwide, there are about 8 billion things that are in some or other way electronically connected. And the estimate is by the end of 2020, this will increase to about 20.6 billion things being electronically connected. So there's a huge difference there. Big data, and I think this is vitally important to the industry that we serve, and the simple reason being is because you need to understand where people move, why they move there, and what are their experience, and what becomes their habits. And this is what your business planning essentially is based on. And obviously with that is a total change in value chains and supply chains. Cloud technology is a huge backup system, computing power, advanced robotics. I've had the experience of going to a really great hotel where 90% of the staff were robots. Now the interesting thing was that my Japanese counterparts were met by a robot. However, a robot that looked like a dinosaur came to meet me in English. So I assume it's the way that my beard has changed since I've joined the deanery that has caused that. So anyway, from dinosaurs to, and then finally blockchain. Blockchain is probably what we occupy ourselves most with in terms of cryptocurrencies, transacting, There isn't a way in which our lives are not affected by blockchain at this stage. So let's go to the 4 things that I've kind of jotted down that have a really functional impact, and I think especially the tourism and hospitality industry. And we go back to the customer experience. We've been emphasizing this since the time or the origin of hospitality, but the key thing is the people that we do business with, their abilities and their mindsets have dramatically changed. Are you keeping up? Are you competing in terms of a physical and digital experience? And what is the one thing that we all have least of? Well, we deal with people who've got expendable money. But the one thing that we haven't got enough of is time. And your job as a tourism or hospitality manager or somebody who works in the service industries is to stretch your perception of time by providing a formidable, seamless service experience. And I think after this is something that you have been emphasizing, I think for what's it? I've known you for about 50 years now, so yeah, you have really. So the next one is, I've already spoken to products and services, and the fact of the matter is that all products and services are enhanced through technology. It's become much more competitive. Service and value chains have become far more compact, and we know about the dynamics of the black box. However, there's something also that I'd like to call the orange box, and you'll see it's actually reflected in my socks. By the way, it's huge socks. So the key thing is, what is the magic in your own organization that makes things work? What exactly is the commitment that your people show, the passion that they show what they do, and they care? And this is one thing that you fully need to understand. That means you need to get off your backside, off your holy chair, be in the passages, understand what people are saying, and tap into the wisdom of those who get the job done. This is one thing that I've learned that works fantastic. Collaborative innovation. All of us are subject to open source technologies. Nothing is really secret anymore. People are exchanging ideas all the time, and technology is a wonderful way to tap into the wisdom of others. If I think about the number of interactions in the College of Business and Economics on a daily basis, and using artificial intelligence and all kinds of other intelligence in order to make this work for us, it's just fantastic. I'd like to go to what is a great graduate. With that, I'll conclude, Julian. My job is to also read out names at graduations. Now, we graduate about 5,400 people a year from the college, and we maintain a 96 employment rate within 6 months. So every time that somebody walks the stage, I ask myself the question, now, is this truly a great graduate? And following the question is, but what is a great graduate? Now, quite frankly, guys, I'm not concerned about your first career or your second career or your third career. I'm kind of thinking about what will you do in your fourth career, your fifth career, or your sixth career. That, for me, is the important thing. And if you draw a line through this and you try to find the logic, it means how do we as a university equip you with the ability to continuously reinvent yourself? And this is a question that we've been battling for the last 2.5, 3 years. And we found 4 things, 4 legs of the table. The first one is behavior, generally referred to as soft skills. But I would now broadly rather define this as mental health. To stay sane, to stay focused, to bounce back. The second one would be to be able to think. And whenever you listen to somebody talking, there are kind of 3 things that I always try to filter to see whether I kind of hear the truth. The first one is that kind of creative thinking. And the second one is critical thinking, or do you just suck up and believe what everybody else is telling you? And the third one is now I need to get the job done, which is applied thinking. And if you haven't worked through those, you're not thinking. So, heads you win, tails you lose. And the next one would be understanding the technologies that drive us. You don't have to be an expert in anything, but you need to understand how they interface. And there's more than enough learning on that. And the last one is agility. That is the ability of an organization, whether it be a large chain, whether it be a B&B, whether it be an SMME, it doesn't matter. Your ability to adapt and to see how you fit into the bigger chain of things, and then this is where you get the magic done. I see more and more a kind of revolution of authority within corporates. I see lots of smaller organizations rising, and I see more and more of our graduates already in their 4th career. That was in a nutshell.
And it was longer than 5 minutes, but I'll let you off.
Thank you very much. As an alumnus of the STH, I'm greatly appreciative of your generosity.
Thanks very much, Daneel. I think it was super interesting. It was good to hear your version of the 4 technologies that we need to pay most attention to, and that in our industry, we're really applying that to totally the seamless service experience. It was also interesting to hear about the 7th career or the retooling. And I think that talks to what we're all talking about today. Everything changes. You can't expect the same career and to be the same. Your students can't when they leave. Things are going to change, and that's what's happening to us now. Things are changing a lot. So I think I'm going to now back what I said about order. I'm going to go to Velma. So Velma has been with Airbnb for over 3 years. She actually has an advertising background. She was with a couple of different advertising companies, the Jupiter Drawing Room, as an account director and brand strategist. And then she was at Cape Town Tourism in marketing, and I have to say she ran their digital campaigns, so she got a Cannes Gold. Did you go to Cannes? Oh, you're unlucky. I was an au pair in Cannes for a year. Lovely place to live, or be. But she went to Cannes to get her Cannes Gold Award for the Send Your Facebook Profile to Cape Town campaign, call it campaign. And of course, I think that probably positioned her to move into what we all talk about as a disruptor. But you're now, what, 10, 11 years old, Airbnb?
Yeah,
11 years old.
11 years old.
Yeah, so I hope you're constantly disrupting yourselves these days. And I hope you're going to tell us something about that. One of the ways that perhaps they did, and that Velma's been very involved in, is bringing the experience element of Airbnb to Africa and to South Africa. And I thought I'd just read this. I was reading a Forbes article, it's about a month old, or 2 months old, it was the end of June, about technology and its impact on our industry. And a guy in the States who's a marketing and travel technology consulting firm said, the hospitality industry has patented a 4-step method to deal with disruption. Step 1 is to ignore it. Step 2 is that when it's pointed out to them, they continue to ignore it. Step 3 is they panic. And step 4 is they complain about it. And I thought that might resonate with you. Velma, what are your thoughts on 4th Industrial Revolution and disruption in our industry?
Thanks very much, Gillian. I think that also one of the things I'm going to put out there is that we prefer not to think of it as disruption, but rather innovation. You know, I think when you start to talk about like the 4th Industrial Revolution and all of these terms come up, like automation, artificial intelligence, big data, there's a real kind of underlying fear that actually what's going to happen is that the robots are going to take over, you know, whatever shape they come in, whether they're dinosaurs or other. And really what Airbnb is, in its very simplest definition, is a community. Of the people here, just interesting, how many of you have traveled on Airbnb? Good. I'm glad to see Arthur has. How many of you have hosted on Airbnb? Arthur, have you? Yes. Fantastic. And so really what it does as a platform is that it connects people who've got a space to share in their home or have a passion that they want to share to guests who are looking for unique and interesting experiences. And Airbnb, what we do is that we facilitate this exchange by the whole way that the platform is designed is to facilitate trust between people who often come from continents apart. And really what we're doing is we're using the technology to design the trust so that a really human and authentic connection can work, can develop. And so we really do see ourselves as a people-powered platform with a technology that underpins it. And to give you a sense of that, we've had more than 500 million people have used Airbnb. Every night, more than 2 million people stay in an Airbnb. And really, as a company, our mission is, and this sounds very kind of West Coast, America. Our mission is to create a world where anyone can belong anywhere. And in a world, where people are continually trying to build walls, we think that travel is really, really important in building bridges. And so, globally we see that 10% of GDP comes from tourism, 1 in 10 jobs. And we believe, though, that not all tourism is created equal. And we believe that the kind of tourism that comes from platforms like Airbnb can contribute to a healthier tourism. So something that is more diverse, more authentic, where the benefits can actually go into the local communities. We see that 2/3 of our listings are outside of main tourism areas. 50% of our guests are spending money in those neighborhoods in which they are staying. And ultimately also more sustainable tourism, because you're thinking about how you optimize existing resources rather than having to create new infrastructure. And I think, and this is really, really important in the context of South Africa. So we have a mandate which comes directly from the presidency that says, we need to double the number of visitors by, I think, 2025. We need to double the number of jobs in tourism. And the way in which kind of technologies like Airbnb can help are in two ways. The first is that you can lower the barriers of entry. So, previously there have been huge systemic and financial barriers to coming into the economy or to starting your own job. Now, or your own business. Now, arguably, all you need is a phone, an internet connection, a space in your home, or a passion that you can share that talks to the experiences, and you can join the tourism economy. We have a review system. That means that the quality is always going to be something that has to be there, but it's a lot easier for people to come into tourism and for there to be real diversity in terms of that growth. So whether you're sitting on the Atlantic seaboard or in Soweto or Khayelitsha. And I think the other thing that we see is that platforms like Airbnb can actually help grow the overall size of the pie. To date, we've had more than 2 million visitors come to South Africa on Airbnb. Over half of them were in the last year. In a recent independent economic study, we saw that Airbnb contributed in 2018 8.7 billion rand to the South African economy, and we supported over 22,000 jobs. 1 in 8 visitors to South Africa is coming on Airbnb, and they're also saying that and a third of them are saying that if it weren't for Airbnb, they wouldn't have come. So it really talks to kind of growing the overall size of the pie, and I think it's important, in the tourism sector that we start to think about jobs in the sector differently. Like if we look at our hosts, a typical host on Airbnb hosts for approximately 30 days a year and makes around 30,000 rand a year, which if you're running a full-time business is not great money, but if you're helping it to cover the school fees, or you're paying for your next holiday, or you're helping it to stay in your home, that's a nice bit of kind of additional income. We see that 50% of our hosts they are entrepreneurs, stay-at-home parents, or freelancers, and actually 65% of them are women. So it really starts to sort of think about thinking about the opportunities that technology provide to make those human connections. Gillian, if I just may make one last point. I think that the challenge that we have in South Africa when we're starting to talk about the fourth industrial revolution, which is really about a multitude of technologies converging, whereas the second and the third industrial revolutions were more about single technologies. The truth is that we're still dealing with a lot of the issues of the second and the third industrial revolution. Not everyone has access to electricity. Only 5% of our population have access to broadband. 50% have access to smartphones. So whilst we're in, oops, someone's phone. Hopefully it's not mine. So there are some smartphones out there. But when we start to think about equipping our students and people for the fourth industrial revolution, we have to also do so with the second and the third industrial revolutions in mind.
Velma, thanks very much. I think that was really interesting because what we heard there is the technology is actually the incidental thing to the community and the people in our industry and the peopleness that our industry creates, and taking what we do. And there's a saying that says the best antidote to bigotry is travel, because through travel, you mix with people of different cultures, different persuasions, and what I think Airbnb is doing is taking that down to another community level. And I love the way that you talk about the fact that that also is very important in leveling playing fields, so for inclusivity, to bring people into the economic field who weren't there before. So it was not about the tech, it was about the people, it's about the inclusivity, and then you ended on thinking about the state we are in Africa, where some of these things are a challenge because there's still no electricity or whatever. Thanks, Velma. I'm going to move on now to Arthur.
You said it very succinctly.
But that's what I'm supposed to do, isn't it? Anyhow, Arthur. What do I say about Arthur? Other than he's a doyen of our industry. He doesn't want me to say anything. And I'm going to say, so he started as a purchasing officer with Protea Hotels. So when we were talking on the board earlier today, we were having a discussion about students leave the university and they sometimes, or they used to think they go straight into management, which was a challenge. Sometimes it's an industry where it's great to get your hands dirty at the coalface and then go up into management. And of course, then I'm sure some people know, but if you don't know, he was part of the Pro Tier. He was the chief executive officer. It was 130 hotels operating in 7 African countries, which of course then was sold to Marriott, as in a great match between Pro Tier and Marriott. So now he's an owner of some of those hotels that are under the Marriott brand, some of them. There might be some under different brands, I'm not sure. CEO of Platinum Hospitality Holdings. And I'm just going to be really rude and say, you know, are we not too old to be talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution? That's what they say to me sometimes. You need the young people to come in and talk. And I thought, hey, Velma's probably young. Arthur, over to you. What are your thoughts on disruption in our industry, on technology adoption and innovation in our industry?
Like they said, thank you.
Oh, you know what? I'm not here to be nice.
I'm not nervous. I just know nothing about it. I have no idea at all why I'm here. You know, anyway, they dragged me along and I'm here now. Yeah, this Fourth Industrial Revolution, quite interesting stuff. Some of you may remember, but many years ago, when Doc Mornay was middle-aged, and I was in hotel school, we used to check people in and out on a Whitney board. You remember Whitney board?
For sure.
Now, they then arrived with computers. And what was the promise that they made to us with computers? They said that now we've got computers, you will be able to have less staff. That, unfortunately, was a fallacy that persists until today. So many people think that the Fourth Industrial Revolution is going to free up people. We're going to have less people. It's not so. In fact, we keep on employing more people. And at that juncture, let me tell you that the biggest takeout that I've got of this is that in South Africa in particular, and in Africa in general, we have a moral and a sacred imperative to employ people. There is not a single question of doubt in my mind that that is what is to be done. There are people out there who would love the opportunity to work, and our industry provides them the opportunity without a formal education to enter our industry and to make a difference. Now, Bill Gates said that if you take a system that is a mess and computerize it, all you're going to do is speed up that mess. And that is precisely what happens with AI, big data, etc. Many people fall into that trap. There is also some kind of a myth out there, and please allow me to be the first one to dispel it. Yes, we do have 16 hotels. Yes, they're the remnants that are left over because bloody Marriott didn't want to buy them and allow me to retire, so now I've got to run those hotels kind of on management contracts and stuff with Marriott. So I'm still a reluctant bride at the party. However, I attended the Marriott conference this past weekend, and for those of you who arrogantly think that people like Marriott are too big to understand this, please let me dissuade you of that notion right now. Marriott are absolutely at the forefront of a lot of this AI stuff. They have got systems that are coming down the pike in 3, 5, 10, 15, 50 years' time that they know precisely what is happening and how they're going to implement it. So for people to say big companies don't get it, you're wrong. There is no question that they absolutely do get it. The challenge for us goes back to one of the fundamentals that Daneel and also Velma touched on, but Daneel spoke about. And that is this thing that I've made kind of a bit my life. We are in the business to give customer service. That's what we do. And people that are glued to their devices, that are traveling, that are more stressed today than they've ever been in the history of the world, want to come to their hotel or their Airbnb as a place of refuge. They do not want to be confronted with more technology that is impossible to understand, that you need to load another app. I'd like you all please to congratulate me on my password now. I have 105 passwords. For all of these bloody things that I don't need, I'm using once, I've got to download the app, I've got to get I'm old, I'm decrepit, what do I need to do this for? But yet people insist on that. My password, I'll tell you for most of them, no. Okay, so there's all of this technology. And then what happens, the other thing that I see is people have got this amazing technology and they don't talk about it. For example, far be it from me to mention companies' names, Bidvest Car Rental, have got an app. And it's a very clever app. As you're on the aircraft, as you touch down, it sends you an SMS and it says your car has been assigned. You go directly onto the app, you push a button, and it says your car is in J9. You press locate, you press unlock, and the car unlocks as you're walking up to it. Great technology. Two problems. One is it doesn't work in basements or in the Kruger National Park where there is no signal. And second of all, they don't bloody tell anybody about it. How different is the one car rental company to the other? There is no difference. Everybody has a Toyota in Bay 37. There's no difference. So the one thing that they've got different, they don't talk about. It blows my mind that people can go and spend all the money on AI, apply it in a smart way, put the app on people's phones, and then not market and merchandise it. So I would be saying that to them if they're here. They're not, I don't particularly care. Because you see, I'm no longer speaking on behalf of Protea. I don't care. I can say whatever I like.
You weren't very guarded before, though. But
if any of you are interested, Onyango and Kessa did a PhD thesis, actually for University of Johannesburg, on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, how it applies to hotels in both Kenya and in South Africa. It is an absolutely fascinating piece of work, and if you haven't downloaded it, I urge you to do so. It talks about the places that the Kenyans are way in advance of South Africans, and the places where South Africans are in advance of Kenyans. The net result of that is there's a lot that we can learn from each other. But I believe that this all exists only to give guests substantially better service than they ever had before. If we are not using it to that end, then in my opinion, the technology is driving us as opposed to us using the technology to give guests better experiences. Thank you very much. Can I go now? I'm done.
Thanks so much, Arthur. Entertaining as always. And I think you're pointing out exactly the essence of our industry and what the essence of our industry is. I think all two panelists have said it as well. And the technology is there to support providing the seamless customer experience. I might challenge you on some things. I think there's a lot of fantastic technology that I wish hotels used more of, so it was easier, because we are stressed, we are tired, and if we can just go straight to our room with a key that works, it's great. But it must work. It must work. You're absolutely right. So thank you very much.
Ask the question. I'll give you the answer.
Going to go that later. So I'm going to go on to Mvusi. So I'm just going to start with the last of her qualifications, PhD in Land and Agrarian Reform, which I think is something very important for South Africa. But now she's in a totally different environment. Before where she is now, which is Journey, she's the CEO of Journey, and she'll tell you all about Journey. She was actually with Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism as Chief Operating Officer, and before that with the Sand Parks and General Manager of Operations at South African National Parks. So she's got a parks background, if you like, and which is very interesting, because all of this doesn't give me the technology background that I expect, given what she's doing currently, which is running Journey. I'm just going to mention she's also an advocate for women, transformation, inclusive growth, and education in South Africa in a big way, and we thank you for all of the work you do in that area. Mvusi, what's happening at Journey, and what's there, and what's the Fourth Industrial Revolution got to do with that, and are you going to disrupt us?
Thank you very much. The colleagues have actually made me feel very comfortable, especially after this background, that the little I know about technology is the primer stove. And from that perspective, I think what I just am going to share with you is a kind of discussion that happened only yesterday. We're coming from Limpopo, where we were asking exactly the same question about how can we double the numbers getting into that province in line with what the country is looking at. And the Fourth Industrial Revolution, leveraging of technology, was actually at the center of this discussion. Colleagues, when we're talking about panic, it's a reality. When you are talking to people in the provinces that are actually running products, some that are good in the rural outskirts, we need to be really zooming at how people in the rural outskirts of this country can leverage technology with the challenges that we have. And that is what we are actually faced with as a country in terms of how do we grow domestic tourism. So some of the questions that we actually talked about was, we have outdated data. So everybody else was talking, reflecting, and presenting statistics that is as outdated as 2018. Here we are in 2019. And this is one of the issues that are existing in this country. I was very excited that you were actually presenting the data from Airbnb. But the challenge that we have as a country is for us to make strategic decisions about the businesses that we run, about the policies that we are making. We really have to be singing from the one hymn book. And unfortunately, at this point in time, we are not. That's the very first thing. The second thing is about how do we integrate the destinations that we are trying to promote. We are not promoting ourselves in isolation. We're not promoting the hotels. We are not promoting the attractions in isolation. But we need to move away from promoting the individual products, but look at how we leverage technology to navigate and ensure that we are responding to the needs of the customers more efficiently, effectively, and inclusively. So we are actually in that journey of developing that database that is going to be used by everybody else. So the very first thing that we actually want to say to you as a country, which is an initiative between both the public and the private sector, is that we have to come together. The time of actually really punching statistics and our own analysis as in isolation has gone. Technology doesn't allow that. So we have to change our mindsets. We have to actually behave innovatively, and we have to actually act and respond to the needs of the customers. So that's the first message that I would like to leave here. The second one, because I'm talking to academia, there are opportunities for the young people, maybe even the old one, because you can't destroy to build. As we have actually indicated, that people will always be at the centerpiece of technology, because any analysis and the trends and the projections that we are making, they are going to be designed according to what we want to hear. So disruption should be actually looked as an opportunity. The fact that we see Airbnb being efficient and innovative, there are opportunities for us to be able to enhance the platforms that we are actually building, because that is what 4IR is all about. It's about the convergence of all the technologies, just to make sure that the visitors, when they come to South Africa, or we are actually accessing ourselves globally, people can actually seamlessly experience the authentic South Africa. That's all what we are all about. So to the academia, research and development is one of the opportunities that really, as an industry, both the public and private sector, we really want to be engaging with, together with you in partnership, so that whatever digital solutions that we are developing for the country are going to be actually relevant. We need those young minds. The same thing that we have a contribution to make in the academia, so that the people that are actually being skilled here are able to actually respond to the needs of the industry, and more so to also create opportunities to empower these people in the rural outskirts of our country. I can tell you now, one of the critical projects that we are going to be developing for the country is an SMME booking tool. We are just a very small company whose business model is it's a transformation initiative. We are really looking for people to develop those apps, but What we want an integration that wherever you are, whether you are Airbnb or you have a rental company somewhere else, or you are promoting a particular destination everywhere else, there is no competition in the technology. I think technology, what it does, is actually bringing us together so that we can create an ecosystem with which all of us can actually engage. So that collaboration and the win-win situation is actually brought in by technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think you hit on a couple of things there that we should remember. One is the public-private partnership approach, the need to have accurate data to make decisions, and that technology can support us in having the accurate data. And then R&D, and you came back to students, which is where Daneel started, is how do we actually tool our students for the future where there is a fourth industrial revolution and all of these different technologies are converging on us. I'm going to ask a couple of questions of the panel and then throw it out to the floor for questions. I'm going to start, Velma, with you. How does Airbnb go about innovation? For instance, how did you actually come up with the idea to bring in experiences? Or what do you have processes? What goes on?
Yeah, so everything we do is like kind of innovation is absolutely kind of at the core of what we do. So we have values as a company, which everyone subscribes to, and actually the number one value is to be a serial entrepreneur. There's a side story about actually one of the ways in which Airbnb raised $50,000 when they were about to kind of go bust, is that our founders spent a lot of time making and designing cereal boxes. They were for the Democratic Party convention. They were called Obama O's and Captain McCain's. And they sold these cereal boxes for $40 a pop. And that's how they raised $50,000.
This is cornflakes or whatever,
yeah,
cereal. That's what you mean,
they branded them and they sold them. And that's how they raised sort of $50,000 to get them to the next part of their journey. And actually their biggest investor invested in them not because of the idea of Airbnb. He wasn't sold on the idea. He said, I'm not quite sure how you're going to get strangers from different places to share homes. But he really liked their grit and the fact that what they were prepared to do to get to that innovation. Anyway, that's the side story. But we have our core value is about be a serial entrepreneur. Serial spelt as in C-E-R-E-A-L.
Not the
and it's, everything we do. So I think the first thing is that we don't think about failure. No one there isn't such a thing about failing. We're constantly trying things. We try things, we start small, we pilot things, and then we review them. And we're very happy to say, this didn't work. How do we improve on that? And so this kind of notion, and I think the other thing is that there's never a notion of you've arrived at your destination, that we've built this and now it's complete. We're constantly reviewing, innovating, making things better. And also, we have an incredible amount of user data and using that user data to kind of inform how we make things better.
Fantastic. So it's constant innovation or constant entrepreneurial approach to what can we do differently or new or add, and having that almost in your DNA, if I can say that. And then I think quite critical is no fear of failure, trying, testing and piloting things. Daneel, can I put you on the spot? Prof, I don't know how I'm supposed to. So you talked about the 4 technologies that you saw as critical and important to look at. Did you have any idea of what is the next biggest, if you want to call it a disruptor, or the next biggest change, or what will happen in the travel industry where technology will be applied and it'll change the way we travel or change the way we do things?
Well, I think just think of your latest experience at a passport checking point. Yeah. And then there are 2 things, language recognition, face recognition. And you spoke about data, and I'd like to connect those 2 dots. The reason why it's difficult for people from our continent to travel is because we speak different languages, and that hasn't been incorporated in big data. The way that we look have not been incorporated in big data. So are we going to let somebody else dictate, or are we going to contribute towards that process? So that's why I fully agree with you. The sooner we start to participate and help to build this big data sets, the better for us as an industry. And there, I think, when you look globally at successful tourism and hospitality stories or transformation, there's where government and the private sector has really worked closely together in order to generate, well, to plan the what big data is required, and then to get it together. Otherwise, you end up with a bigger mess than you ever thought.
So I'm just going to throw something in there because doing a bit of research for this. Again, the same Forbes article says the next biggest disruptor of the travel and tourism industry is Google and Amazon coming in. And why will Google and Amazon be powerful? Data. They have such a lot of data on us.
Exactly.
And so Google's already getting there. I don't know if everybody knows. They already had a Google Travel, whatever it was called, and they relaunched it last month, I think. And it's a very powerful integrator. So I went on it, and it knew everywhere I'd been, everything I Googled on Airbnb, it knew everything, and it already put it up there and said, Gillian, this is what you looked at last, this is where you stayed, this is what you did, and this is the flight booking you booked, and it knew everything about me, which some people might not like, some people will like. But I thought if you like it, it's very easy. It's like helping me, and I didn't go into it in detail. But I think Google and Amazon, they say, is only dipping their pinky toe. But wait, Amazon's in entry into our industry is going to be the one that wows us more than anything else. And I've got my imagination going on what that might be. But I think behind it all is exactly what you're talking about, is the ability to use data. You talked about data. The big data is the thing that we need to be able to collect in a way that it's analyzable, and then analyze it appropriately so that you can act. And that's what Airbnb say they're doing all the time.
I think there's a very interesting thing also happening that's kind of a balance in that argument. And this is the whole story about first-party data. Now think about blockchain and transacting and cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Then you also think is that when there are two areas where all the data on the globe are collected.
Yep.
The one sits in Beijing, the other one sits in California. So the one is Google that we all know, and the other one is the Chinese counterpart, and nobody knows what's happening in that black box. However, you've had a first experience of one of the outcomes, and that affects all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
So when, as an industry, how do we secure the privacy of our clients and our guests, but at the same time also tap into the behavioral cycles so that we can be of great service?
And I'm just going to add, the other great repository of data, although it's done nationally at government level, governments. So governments now with their passports, the biometrics that they store on passports, the biometrics they store on your ID, they have this amazing amount of data. And I apologize for being the facilitator and saying stuff, but the World Travel and Tourism Council is doing an exercise about seamless travel, which is really to use biometrics, which is going to be face or irises, for sort of everything. And one of the big challenges is, okay, so how do I give my biometric facial data to people, and how do they keep it safely? And do you do it on a per trip basis, or do you do it on all trips? But smart airports is already a thing. People are boarding planes through facial recognition already, and they want to extend that to the hotels, to the cruise liners, to the car hire industry, so that you sort of have one biometric ticket for each trip you go on, and your trip becomes seamless. The biometric, whatever it is, footprint or validation takes you through this whole seamless journey. And it's scary stuff, because that's all this information about is out there, but hey, my passport's got a digital picture of me on it, and it's got my fingerprints on it, embedded in that chip. So that's what they use when you go into other countries. It's very interesting. Arthur, you mentioned Marriott, and I agree with you, and Volker's on my next panel, so I don't want to sort of preempt stories about Marriott, but I also agree that I think of global hotel groups, they sort of look as though they're ahead of the curve in being ready to use what's usable in all of these technologies, in the travel experience, in the room experience. You've got hotels that Marriott are managing, and you just told me, you shared with me that you reappointed Marriott to one of your premium hotels. Was that a deciding factor? Did it have any bearing whatsoever on your choice of Marriott? And what are you looking for in your operators with respect to their attitude to adopting emerging technologies?
Okay, so when we went out on tender for the Wanderers with my partners, we looked at all the big brands that operate in sub-Saharan Africa. And there were a number of things. Obviously, the ticket to the ballpark is, do you have a BE strategy? Are you rated, et cetera, et cetera? And then we went through a whole bunch of other stuff, and technology was definitely one. To give you an idea, I checked into it's not our hotel, the Marriott Autograph Collection Arabella this weekend. And yesterday I checked into Fire and Ice, also not our hotel, in Melrose Arch. Now, because I'm on the app, I walked up to the front desk because of South African government requirement. I had to hand over my driver's license, but I was pre-registered. In the case of Arabella, my room was ready. In the case of Fire and Ice, my room was not. They sent me a message automatically when my room was ready. I asked for extra room amenities, and I asked for down pillows. They were in my room when I got there. no interaction with any of the staff. It used the technology to go and send a message to make sure that the room was loaded with all the correct stuff. That, as far as the average hotel is concerned, is space age. Because a lot of what we talk about here, especially in academia, is where are we kind of going to be in a few years' time and many years thereafter. Most of us, however, live in the real world. We live right here and now. And the failure that I see is people trying to react to stuff that might come at them. If Google becomes, or Alibaba becomes this massive tourism thing, then how am I going to react? Well, how about greeting your guests at the front desk? Let's start with that, okay? And how about asking them what it is that they'd like? Because most people are actually completely blind to the fact that we need to look after our guests here and now. And I have had 2 exceptional experiences in the last 3 days.
Technology enabled, though.
Technology enabled,
So when
yes.
it works, it's fantastic.
But you know what? I think that the attitude that I have, mainly because I'm ancient, I'm almost an ancestor. So, and the reason for that is I allowed that other people do the work and the analytics and applying it. And then our job in our company is to see how we can best use it, as opposed to trying to be a technology buffet, which...
I think you're also talking to like being a leader and an innovator, being a follower and a taker. So it's a waiting for the right stuff, and when it's working, adopt it and use it efficiently.
I think if you're part of a community, then you need to use that. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but yeah, I'm not retired. I'm working my ass off. Last week I was in Kruger, okay, because we're refurbishing Prodi Hotel Kruger Gate. So I arrived there. I've got a wild card. How do you get into Kruger with a wild card? You go and fill in a paper form. You fill in all the cuck, and then you've got to get... No, I don't work there anymore. But I'm just saying, from days gone by. How in 2019 can we have people with wild cards? They've paid the money, and you've got to stand there behind everybody from Sabi and Bala and Londolozi, and you've got to then eventually get in the queue. Then you hand in your paper. Then they look at the paper, they enter it, and they say, gee whiz, you don't have to pay money to come in the park. I said, I knew that when I got off the aeroplane. I started this conversation, I know how it ends. So anyway, off we go. And then you do it coming back in again. That's the failure, in my opinion, of the government and quasi-government operations, is that they're so far behind the curve that it's actually costing us in customer experiences. Read this document about Kenya versus South Africa. Read it, please.
I've got a Kenyan on my next panel, so we'll hear all about it. Huh?
That's, Kenya is there.
And I just want to say, one of the things that surprises me, I don't travel enough to the same hotel group to be on their loyalty programs or to make the app effective, although I do try the apps now and again. But I travel to lots of hotels. I book in, or I'm booked by a travel agent or my business or my client or whatever. Do you know, only once is, exactly, but do you know how many people are still using them?
I do.
So, especially government, I work for government last.
They don't pay their bills.
Yeah.
I know they are.
I've only once had a hotel send me a link for a pre-check-in so that I could check in online before I got there. Only once ever in my life have I experienced that, which is I have on an Accor app in the UK. But just, you know, how simple is that? Just take the details. You can even ask me when I'm going to arrive. You know, the car hire companies ask me what flight I'm on, when am I going to pick up the car. Hotels could know much more about scheduling housekeeping if they found out when you're arriving and when you're departing. But yeah,
they do if you stay at the right hotel company.
Yeah, well, there you go. I agree. That's what you're telling me. I've got to stay at the Marriott's and that's
Just
it.
trying to help, you know. It's my job to help. If I could be of any assistance, you know.
Yeah, I want to comp.
Download the app. Get another password that you didn't need before.
I don't know if you need to answer the sandbox thing, but you know, one of the things that I was on a different forum with you before, somebody said, aren't you reinventing the wheel? And maybe you can talk about that, because you talked about the booking app for the small and medium enterprises and to bring the people in, and we need to write a new app. Or what are you doing at Journey? And maybe I should just explain Journey. Journey is an Amadeus-funded project as part of a deal with DTI, as a foreign-owned company operating in South Africa, a big contract with SAA, to put some money, I think it's like BE scorecard money, but not quite. It's not equity equivalent, but something like that. And hence, that's why it's a public-private partnership, and she's got a fantastic advisory board and a fantastic board of public and private people, and they all input into what's happening. But yeah, we've got booking engines. What the person said last week is, well, with this Knightsbridge, why do you need to write another one?
Thank you very much. Firstly, I just want to challenge the room and your research.
That next year, this time, you'll be talking about Journey as a disruptor. It won't be Google, because everybody else who is providing tourism analysis in this country is looking only at the inbound visitors. There isn't data on the ground, you know, at a granular level that is actually being integrated. And that's exactly one of the things that we are actually going to be doing. And that's the reason why we are actually saying that whatever solutions you have, either the booking system or a visitor app that you have elsewhere, our goal is to centralize the information. So we will plug in, the technology guru talks about API. What is that? Ancient man.
API is a link into the system.
I just wanted to test if you...
Application.
I'm not so stupid. I know Doc says that I only graduated because he felt sorry for me, but I actually did graduate.
On a Whitney rack. On a Whitney
There
rack.
are all these people.
Okay. So just for your own comfort, I got to know what API only 3 months ago, but I know what it does, the
That's because she was in
capabilities.
some parts before, hey?
So basically what we are trying to do is to actually integrate existing solutions. So the reason why we are actually seen as duplicating is because there was a critical gap that was identified by the same sector, that there are a lot of other people who are not accessing the global market. And we are actually providing affordable solutions for them.
Fantastic.
So for everybody else, they will plug in. Even in terms of data, what we are actually doing, we are going to be making it a point that we engage with people like yourselves and win, if I can say, win your support, win your trust, that whatever we are actually going to be developing is actually for the benefit of everybody else. This solution, digital solution, is going to be hosted by the South African government, but there is collaboration that is actually out there. So anywhere and everywhere you go, people really talk about Journey, and we are also inviting all of you to be our ambassadors out there. I want to challenge the school, and we are very happy that we are invited here, is that whilst we are developing this platform for South Africans, for the sector, we really would like to also be a learning platform so that we can be able to actually look at how we can respond to the needs of the customer as a country.
Fantastic, Mbuzi. Thank you very much. We started late, so nobody's holding up anything and telling me I've run out of time. So can we have, has anybody on the floor got any questions for any of my panel? If you have a question, could you just introduce yourself, and if it's for somebody specifically, say who they are. I think we've got a roving mic coming. There's a gentleman on this side, sort of. Thank you.
My name is Raphael. I'm a postdoc at School of Tourism and Hospitality here. The radical changes that Fourth Industrial Revolution has brought and is still here to bring is raising certain questions about the challenges that tourism industry will face, which is a very sensitive industry. Inequalities, at least, is one of the challenges or potential issues that Fourth Industrial Revolution is bringing. This inequality can be from continent to continent or within societies. Disruptions, the inequalities are going to bring a lot of social unrest, if that is going to be real. I want your thoughts on this, because if there's any social disruption, the divide between the rich and the poor, mostly the poor will get the information very fast with this kind of ICT connections, apps, here and there. People even use that to, some of the information, they don't scrutinize it, and they begin to share it on rest. People may fail to travel or may be hesitant to travel. What are your thoughts on this, and what are some of the things that the industries, society, individuals, and groups are doing to cope with some of these things if they come? And issues of cybersecurity would even be much more serious, particularly for the hotel industry, which has to do with travel and tour and all that.
Okay.
So I will be
Thank you. So
interested in hearing.
quite a long question, but I think you're talking about inequality and that tourism may actually foster more inequality, potentially, or the technology might. And how would the panelists or how would our industry address that? Is that more or less it?
Yes,
Yeah.
not just only the industry, but each
Society.
yeah,
So society has
society.
inequality issues and our industry within that.
Yep.
Does anybody want to tackle that? Okay. Velma?
I mean, I think your question is really really valid around, in many cases we're seeing that kind of technology is kind of almost spreading the gap between the have and the have-nots. I think if you flip that and you think about, rather than kind of what is the challenge, but really what is the opportunity. And I think this is specifically relevant to Africa and South Africa, is that that technology can really be used as an enabler for more inclusive growth. And to kind of give you an example, and I can really just talk from an Airbnb perspective, but we have seen incredible growth across the continent. We've seen, well over 100,000 active listings, across the continent. But we've also realized that, and this real potential of, like, how do you you can use technology to take tourism to places and communities that haven't traditionally benefited from tourism. And actually, you've got a global audience of travelers that are looking for these really unique and interesting experiences. And so as a company, 2 years ago, we committed $1 million to inclusive tourism on the continent. Last year, we hosted a summit. It was in Langa, just outside Cape Town. And we brought together, Judy was there, we brought together 200 influencers from across the continent to really think through, like, how do we use technology? What are the challenges? What are the barriers? But what are the opportunities? How do we use technology to build a more inclusive tourism? And we've also created an initiative called the Airbnb Africa Academy, which is working with what we call tourism entrepreneurs from under-resourced communities, so townships and rural areas. We've run now in South Africa. We're about to go to Kenya. And it's working with hosts in these communities to give them the skills and the tools to benefit from the Airbnb platform. We've now had more than 100 people in the last 2 years that have come through the academy. And we have some of our most successful hosts in South Africa are in Soweto, they're in Kayamandi, they're in Langa, and it's because of the additional support that they've got through an initiative like the Academy.
Thanks, Velma. And Arthur?
Okay, very quick one. I gave the Kruger National Park hell. Let me give them an accolade. What they did some time back was that they took the old traditional big white-owned businesses who used to take people into the park, and they trained a whole lot of local people from Bushbuck Ridge, gave them loans, allowed them to buy their own game drive vehicle. At Protea Hotel Kruger Gate, we only use those people to transport guests in and out of the park. And it's unbelievable, as you drive around the KNP today, you find literally hundreds of vehicles driven by owners of those vehicles. And believe me, when you get a game drive for somebody like that, who's knowledgeable, they've been trained, it's their vehicle, versus an employee of some big amorphous tourism company. That's one of the ways, and I have got hundreds and hundreds of examples of those things. The responsibility, however, where you're absolutely correct, lies with the people in this room, lies with the leaders of the tourism industry to create more opportunities for people who've been disenfranchised and to give them an unequal opportunity because they had an unequal opportunity years back.
Thank you. And Lucy, you also comment?
Just two thoughts from my side. I think
for me, the fact that South Africa is now spearheading the strategy on 4IR, following up, I think it's the third country that I know of, that is really looking at how we can bridge the gap, is one of the things that we should actually be leveraging on. But one of the things that is a gap is the fact that tourism is not represented in there. And I think that is one of the things that we should be actually looking at, is to make it a point that we influence the national strategy so that we are not actually just have to tag along around that, in particular because tourism has been known to be always in the forefront of technology leveraging. And the second thing I think that is an issue is about really capacity building. And that is why it's very important that for any solutions that we are actually putting up there, we really need to be thinking about whether those are going to be relevant for the people that need to use it. That is exactly why at Journey, we have decided, although we do not have capacity, we are going to be looking at people around this room to be able to build the capacity of the people on the ground to be able to use those technology. So every other solution that we are actually providing, we must actually really think of the people that do not have to ensure that we are bringing them on board.
Thanks very much. So I think what we said there is technology can actually be an enabler of inclusivity and distribution, but the onus is on us. And where people are doing it, quite a lot of people are doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it, or you know of instances, it's up to us in the room to make sure that we don't let tourism continue to drive inequality. It has to drive equality. That's what we should want it to do. I think maybe I've got time for one. There's one hand over there. Yeah, okay. So we're going to do that question and that question. Then I think I've got to cut, unfortunately, because we're running out of time. 2 more questions.
Hi, my name is Tambani from the IDC. I've got 3 questions.
No, 1 question is allowed. Okay, ask your 3 and we'll choose. One question.
My questions are probably around job creation. I just want to ask, is the impact of 4IR to job creation in the tourism sector? And then product owners, are you seeing any improvement in the bottom line when you fully implement 4IR to your operations? And then the last one to Velma on the your statistics that you mentioned earlier, are those statistics really adding any new value to GDP, or are they taking away from current traditional hotel model operators or traditional hoteliers in terms of job creation or contributing to the fiscus? Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm going to ask my panelists to answer very succinctly and quickly. I think, Velma, if you can go first with the second question.
So those stats, I mean, so those stats are over a period where there has been overall tourism growth. We also see that a number of our guests would not have come to if it weren't for Airbnb. So we believe that that's incremental value to the tourism economy.
Thank you very much. Arthur, you're probably the only operator here. Are you employing more or less people and are you making more or less profit?
So essentially what we are doing is we are employing the same amount of people. We are not reducing the number of people. However, their jobs are changing so that they are more customer focused instead of sitting there and mindlessly entering data on computers. That's being automated. And the challenge for us, I need you to understand this, when I sold the company to Marriott, there were 16,000 people employed at Protea. A condition of the sale was that nobody be retrenched for 18 months, not one person. Bill Marriott agreed. They have, until today, not retrenched anybody. And that is a hell of an achievement in a company, in a massive listed company, where the pressure is to retrench. What they do, they retrain, reskill, and use people in different roles. Roles, actually, that makes their job more meaningful. Sorry for the long answer.
You're forgiven. Last question. First, Tembi.
Tembi Tichawa, Professor Tembi Tichawa,
academic at tourism at the STH. Very interesting conversation. I have a literature review here, but I'm trying to actually ask the question. In the room, we've got young academics, young and upcoming scholars, and I think this discussion is really eye-opening. To some of them, it may actually be intimidating. A couple of years back, we had to deal with the call for a more decolonized curriculum. And we saw this coming from our students in higher education institutions in South Africa. I'm just thinking, are we going to see another resistance coming from our students in the future about 4IR? The reason I'm asking it is because of what I hear currently and some of the views that are coming on the table. But perhaps a more direct question will be, I would like you to share or just shed light on how academics need to approach teaching and learning in the face of 4IR. In essence, what does the industry need us to do?
Sure. Thanks, Prof. Prof. Daneel, do you think you perhaps want to tackle that one?
I think we just spoke about saving costs. Now, interestingly, universities are kind of associated with big libraries. Actually, at UJ, we got rid of 60% of our books because they take up unnecessary space. 98% of all the information that we trade is electronically. That brought out overheads considerably, and the return on investment was achieved within 18 months. Let's go to teaching and learning. Nothing can... I don't think there's a lot of talk about online learning and other kinds of learning, but I still think at the end of the day, maybe it's because I'm a bit more traditional, but nothing can swap the magic between a great facilitator of knowledge and students. That is absolutely great, because that kind of human interaction make or break it. But what we also know is that the way in which we teach have changed dramatically. We expect our students to come prepared to class, and then you facilitate these questions. And when I think about it now, I'd say over the last 5 years, you can't assume that somebody will enter a university and know how to teach. The manner in which you facilitate knowledge is an art in its own right. So the question is, do we equip our new lecturers to do so? Yes. Will the students perform better? Yes. We can see this in our throughput rates combined with our employment rates. So yes, it makes sense. If you resist it, it's because you're probably too lazy to attend education and training sessions for yourself, or we are living in the state of I know it all. Well, then you're probably dead in any case. So.
Thanks, Daneel. So that was from an educator, now from an operator.
3 things. Change is inevitable. The speed of change is escalating. Brilliant educators teach the students to welcome that, to bring it on board, and to say, how can I apply that which is coming down the pike at me in order to make a difference in the world? And students that I see running around here, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, excited about the stuff that's coming at them. Not old fossils like me who threatened by it. No, I'm not really, but you know what I mean. They are excited. That's because you guys are doing a great job. So from my point of view, thank you, and please keep it up.
So we're going to make this last comments. Velma, you have something to add, and then Vuzi?
Well, just one last thing on your question is, I would almost think that if we look at the students, they're completely ready for the fourth industrial revolution. They are digital natives. You know, my daughter came, I asked, she wanted to go on a play date the other day, and she said to me, I said, well, I don't know where your friend is, where your friend lives. And she says, well, let's just ask Siri. Siri, where does Anya in the bear class live? Siri was luckily not able to answer that question. But there are people that are coming in are so used to technology that it's actually more about people like ourselves needing to embrace it.
Thank you, Vuzi. You have something to say?
The last point is that technology doesn't change society. People do. They may do so with the assistance of a technology, but the primary drivers of change will remain people.
Thank you. So that was a great end. Thank you. Just maybe another round of applause for the panel. I think they were great. Great. And I think that brings this panel to a close. I'm not going to try and do a lot of wrap-up. I think we ended up coming a little bit back to the Africa question and some of the challenges in Africa, and that's what my next panel, or the next panel, is going to be about. Thank you very much, learned and experienced panelists. Oh my goodness, we have music. Okay. Oh yeah, we need to swap mics. Have you taken your mic off? It's quite hard. Andrew, you're the only one I don't have a CV of. So I'll just say you work at Sons. What are you at Sons again?
So Operations Director.
Operations Director. Okay, cool. Where do I know you from? Remind me.
Centre Tars is when you lot saw me about 12 years ago before I did South Africa.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, great. Hey? Well, it looks like a break, yeah. I didn't announce a break, but there is. No, I'm good. Guys, we're taking a quick leg break, but please make it quick. People have taken a gap. I mean, they're going out.
Yeah, just remind everyone that it's live stream and the hashtag is moderator.
What's the hashtag? What's the hashtag?
STH50, STH and they must follow us at STH at YouTube.
Yo, is that written down somewhere on the program?
Yeah, she gave it, no, she
Everybody's... this thing doesn't go off. I'm on and off.
So the streaming is still on. Should we stop it?
I think we should stop it, yeah. Thank you. I needed more paper as well, so that's cool. I think, okay, we lost everybody. So